So the inevitable has now happened. Mason Mount has left Chelsea Football Club. Feels really weird to say this, doesn't it? But Mason Mount has today penned a 5-year deal with Manchester United, leaving Chelsea for a fee of around 60 million, including add-ons. And if we are led to believe what has been reported, he's going to be earning about 200 grand a week at Old Trafford. Listen, Mason Mount is a brilliant player. He's been a pivotal part of this Chelsea side since being brought in under Lampard during our transfer ban. And he played a huge hand in helping Chelsea lift our second ever Champions League. So as much as I've heard different people questioning Mount's ability as a top level footballer, you won't hear that from me. It has been said time and time again, but there really is a reason why every single manager that Mason Mount has played under has chosen to pick him. And you know what? When I first heard reports that Mount maybe wanted to move away from Stamford Bridge, I pretty much rubbished them. But as time's gone on, you've sort of started to realise that actually, going on Mount's actions, maybe he does want to leave Chelsea Football Club. And today, the inevitable in him leaving has now happened. And the narrative that is being heavily thrown about by YouTubers, pundits and everyone on social media is that Mason Mount has been unfairly treated by Chelsea Football Club. But as with anything in football, I believe there's a lot more to this than meets the eye. And for what it's worth, here is my take on it. So it's been heavily reported that Mason Mount earns about 85 grand a week at Chelsea Football Club. And if we look at this in comparison to other footballers, maybe that is seen as a relatively small wage. However, it is worth noting that over 7 months ago now, Mason Mount turned down a contract offer of around 200 grand a week from Chelsea Football Club. That would have made him one of the highest earners at Chelsea. Now, I find this highly ironic because if we are to believe what has been reported today, Mason Mount has accepted the exact same wage, 200 grand per week at Manchester United. For me, a boyhood fan of the club does not shun 200 grand a week at his boyhood club to then go and accept it at a Premier League rival. Before you lot do it, the first thing that you'll throw at me is that the other leading academy product in our team, Reece James, is earning 250 grand a week. And it's sort of a fair assumption, but let me tell you, from someone that has watched Mason Mount from pretty much the day that he broke into that Chelsea team, been at many matches live, Mason Mount is not Reece James. If you take Reece James out of that Chelsea team, there is such a significant drop-off. It is hard to believe how worse we are without Reece James in that team. If you take Mason Mount out of that team, I'm not saying we aren't any worse, but what I'm saying is the drop-off is nowhere near as significant. Mason Mount, for me, is not the player that Reece James is. Mason Mount, for me, is not as important to Chelsea Football Club as Reece James is on a week-in, week-out basis. And there you can see why the correlation between the wages aren't exactly the same. But let's be honest, they're close enough to the same, aren't they? 50 grand a week when you're earning 200 grand, 250 grand a week. How much different really is it? And then you could throw at me, well, that's Reece James. But what about Enzo Fernandez and Raheem Sterling, who are still earning more than the 200 grand a week that Mason Mount was offered? And my response to that pretty simply would just be, do you understand how football works? One of the benefits of being an academy product at a football club is that you will have the love, support and backing from the fan base and the club like no other player in that team. However, one of the negatives about being an academy product is there will be times when in the changing rooms you're looking around and you're looking at players that have been bought in for big money signings, and you'll look at them and you'll think, I'm outperforming you and I'm a better player than you, but I'm not earning the exact same amount of money as you. But in football, this is nothing new. For years, Ryan Giggs was the leading academy product in that Manchester United dressing room. However, if you look at the wages he was being paid, when the likes of Diego Forlan, Juan Sebastian Veron, just to name a few, were brought in, he would have been looking at them thinking, do you know what? I'm outperforming you week in, week out, and you are earning a lot more money than me. When Jack Wilshere was Mason Mount's age right now, he was in that Arsenal dressing room knowing that he was the leading academy product in that team. However, the likes of Per Mertesacker, Danny Welbeck, Lucas Podolski were all earning more than Jack Wilshere at the time. Going back just a couple of years now, Trent Alexander-Arnold had been a pivotal part in dragging Liverpool to a UEFA Champions League title and a first ever Premier League title. But all that being said, he would have been sat in the dressing room looking around at the likes of Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, Shaqiri, Joel Matip, James Milner, all of which were on a higher wage than himself. So do you see where I'm going with this? All these players got their heads down and grafted rather than throwing their toys out the pram about the fact that the fortune they were earning wasn't as big as the fortune that other players in that dressing room were earning. That still might not be good enough for you. So let's speak about the fact that he's hardly played this season. Mason Mount has had injuries this season. Mason Mount has had different problems on and off the pitch. And for one thing, what I would say is, I've gone on record a few times during the season as saying that the likes of Aubameyang and Hakim Ziyech, players that we all know as Chelsea fans aren't going to be here next season, should not be in that first team. Well, how do we know that the club didn't know that Mason Mount had already made up his mind and he had let them know that he wasn't going to be playing his football at Stamford Bridge next season? Well, if that was the case, then he shouldn't have been on the pitch, because there's no point giving minutes to a player that does not intend to be with us next season. When Kepa was brought in for big money, it looked like he would be the future between the sticks for Chelsea Football Club. However, when Edouard Mendy was brought in, Kepa lost his place. Edouard Mendy helped Chelsea lift the Champions League title, but Kepa did not push for a move. Kepa did not throw his toys out the pram. Kepa fought for his place and eventually regained his position in the team. When Cucurella was brought in that left-back position where Ben Chilwell had been performing for years, Ben Chilwell, again, did not ask to leave the club. Ben Chilwell fought for his position, got his head down, and re-emerged as the number one in that left-back spot. Why could Mason Mount not do the same? It's new beginnings now. We're under Pochettino. Mason Mount would have been a perfect player in that Pochettino system, and I can guarantee you this, with Pochettino picking that team, I bet you now, if Mason Mount had not have wanted to leave the club, he would have been in that starting 11 in the first game of the season under Pochettino. So here's my personal opinion on it. Mason Mount, in his opinion, not my opinion, jump before the ship could sink. I think that Mason Mount took a look at what was going on at the club, the new ownership, the fact that there's been so much instability since Roman Abramovich leaving the club, and I think Mason Mount jumped before the ship could sink. I think Mason Mount thought that the future maybe wasn't as bright for Chelsea as it had looked a couple of years ago after winning Champions League titles, and thought that his future might yield more success at a better club. Personally, I don't believe that his future will yield more success at Man United. I'm not sure what is going on with Man United with the takeover and whatnot, but I wouldn't put it past Chelsea at all finishing above Man United next season. And to cap it off, I don't have any hard feeling towards Mason Mount, but what I would like is clarity from the player, and the player to come out and say, look, I fancy a new challenge. There's nothing wrong with that. If you fancy a new challenge, there is nothing wrong with that. If I worked for a company for most of my life and then eventually I want to go and do a different job, that's completely fine. You don't have to be villainized for that. However, don't let the people around you create a narrative to the media and leak out little drips and drabs of information saying that Chelsea did not try hard enough to keep Mason Mount. We tried hard to keep Mason Mount. We offered him 200 grand a week. I don't think the footballers are actually necessarily overpaid, because I think things like public speculation, them being in the media, them having to sacrifice a lot of their personal life, and the fact that sometimes they will be looking round in their workplace knowing that they are better than other workers in that workplace but aren't getting paid as much money. And for those facts there, I actually don't think the footballers are overpaid. But when you're getting offered 200 grand a week to stay at your boyhood club and you're turning it down to go to a Premier League rival, that don't sit right with me. So let's now stop this whole false narrative that Chelsea did not try hard enough to keep Mason Mount. We did try hard enough to keep Mason Mount. Mason Mount wanted a new adventure, a new club, and a new journey. He turned down the option to stay at Chelsea, fight for his place, and go down as a club legend, and there's nothing wrong with that. But let's call it for what it is. Chelsea fans and Man United fans, I want to know your opinion on this. As soon as this video drops live, I will be in the comments. I'll be replying to every single one of you. So let me know your opinion on this. Should Chelsea fans feel hard done by at what has happened with this Mount situation? Or, like many others, are you blaming it on the club? I'm personally not. I'll be replying to every single comment. Let me know in the comment section below. Please do me a massive favour. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell so that you get a notification every time one of my videos goes live. And I'll see you in the next one.